Welcome to Sow Chatty. I'm Kerry from Dog on the Plot.
And I'm Claire from the Farmyard Garden.
And welcome to the Seedlings episode where we're going to be talking all things wildlife gardening. But before that, well, I'm in a good mood, Claire, because I've just been and walked the dog and I saw a chap in the park who was blowing bubbles for his Jack Russell, who was bouncing about trying to catch them. It was incredibly cute. But the really funny thing was that Dory and these other two dogs were just sat there watching as if to say, what on earth is that dog doing? So it's hilarious. So I'm in a good mood, and I think you're in a good mood too today.
I am. I'm in a good and an emotional mood because we've had a couple of days of tension, but I have a new grandchild. My daughter Hannah has given birth to her first baby, a little girl called Harriet Rose. And when I say little girl, she really is little because I could almost cry thinking about £4.9, teeny tiny. She's shocked everybody, all the medics and everything. They have not been expecting her to be quite so small. So I've been very busy today, Kerry. I've been running around buying little teeny tiny baby clothes for premature babies, and teeny tiny nappies as well, because she is very small. But yeah, she's arrived safely because Hannah's not had a good time of it the last few weeks with preeclampsia and stuff. So yeah, she's safe. The baby's safe, and yeah, very, very lovely. And I've been to see her.
That's lovely news, Claire.
Thank you.
What's hot in your garden then?
Well, I mean, if you've watched the video on Sunday, I know you have. I have a new flower garden.
You've got all these new arrivals this week.
I know. We've put in all of these new beds and I've got 53 square metres of additional growing space, which doesn't sound a lot, but I think it's plenty.
Sounds a lot to me.
Well, for what I want to do, I think it's plenty, so I'm really excited with it. And I cannot stop looking at that archway and the new fence that's sort of dividing the garden up. I just love it so much. It's exactly how I wanted it to be. But what's not hot, leading on from that, is Mr. Mole has found that flower bed around that fence. So, yes, I keep coming up to
appropriate for this week's topic, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what's hot in it's right in front of me, actually. One sec.
Okay.
What's hot here is that I have almost complete germination on the tomatoes.
Impressive.
So there was nothing in the tray when we filmed last week, and they've all shot up. And the only one that doesn't have a single seedling is the pork chop.
Oh, no.
And that's the one I only had one seed left of. So I was really hoping that would come up, but I think that's a lost cause now. So it was a good job that I did sow some extras because I think it'll be Dr. White Cheese that is the replacement for the pork chop one.
Yes.
But that was good.
I have a yellow one that could replace that, assuming mine come up. Because, Kerry, I sowed my tomato seeds at 2:00 this morning. Couldn't sleep, so I decided to sow them.
I love that you felt that you needed to text me at 2:00 though to tell me that.
I did.
It's a good job I have my phone off at night.
I already knew that, hence why this is for you to wake up so you can see the time stamp in the morning of when I actually did this craziness. So yes, I knew that wouldn't have disturbed you. Well, I've not got quite the things that I said I was going to have even just last week when you're going through them, and I really wanted to get it down to 20 because I was telling myself, if I go longer or bigger than 20, I'm going to have the trouble of trying to work which ones are going, which ones aren't when it comes to planting out. So I thought I need to do it now. So actually, a few things have gone out, judging by the comments that we had last week, including the hinds. Yes. I'm not sowing the hinds.
I'm still doing it. Yeah.
Oh, I got put off. But I have put in yellow ox heart. So if you're looking for a yellow replacement, I have put that one in.
Yeah, we'll see how these do. I've got some earmarked for Becky, but the ones that I had sown 3, sometimes 4 seeds of, some of them have got all of them, so I'm definitely going to be having spares. But yeah, it feels good to kind of get the tomatoes going, doesn't it? So
it does.
I think we encouraged some seed buying.
We did, didn't we?
Ultimate Which we're not
enablers.
Sorry about at
We
all.
are not. No. I was just replying to people on the community going, you're welcome. You're welcome. But anyway, what's not hot in your garden? Do I need to ask?
Disaster, Claire. Disaster. I
It
hope people
was.
forgive my thumbnail hyperbole because obviously there are much worse things going on in the world at the moment. But less than ideal to have a storm come through on Thursday night and take out
Yeah.
12 panes of glass. And that's less the 4 that I still needed for the windows on
Yeah.
the roof. But I don't think the issue was that those panes of glass weren't in on the roof because the wind would have gone straight through because they were opposite sides. I think the problem was that the frame was never properly secure.
No.
So, decisions to be made now. That might be my next thumbnail. Decisions. And the consensus at the moment seems to be under the video that I should get rid.
I have to say, I agree. As soon as you said that those roof struts can't be connected to the frame, I was like, no, it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And I would
Someone
hate for it to happen
suggested.
when you were in it.
Oh, I know. When we were cleaning up the glass, and then we're suddenly like, probably shouldn't be under these panes of glass that are just hanging on in there. And it was, a good idea to kind of get those out. I did have a comment about welding. I've never
Yeah.
done any welding, Claire, but I don't know if they could be welded together. But because it's been concertinaed in the past, I don't even know that they reach far enough
No.
to do that. But when I was filming the very last bit of my video and I was standing in the home greenhouse and I was sort of gesturing to the frame in there, it was only when I was editing, I was like, oh yeah, that frame. So it connects the pieces, but then there's also a strut between.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if I got some of those? Could that do the
Well,
trick?
I mean, I don't know about welding because it's aluminium. So you'd need a very specialist welder, I would imagine, for
Oh, would
that,
you?
because
Okay.
that's why they're bolted or pot riveted. So, I mean, if you've got a pot riveter and you could do that. But what I would probably, if I really wanted to be a bodger and badge it, as they say, I probably Duncan would get some like little angle iron and he would make the shape you needed to bridge the gap. And then you could punch
Okay.
holes in them or drill holes and actually attach those then to pull it together that
Okay.
way. So I guess you
Yeah.
could do something, but when you remind yourself just how flattened it had been in that original storm, I mean, I think you did well to ever get it up there in the first place, to be honest.
Partly what I was thinking, I was saying to Becky, I got a season out of it.
Yeah.
I grew tomatoes and peppers and aubergines or loofahs. They all grew in that greenhouse last summer. And so even if I do call it a day with that frame, I got a year out of it. And I was thinking about that because a lot of people, not in this storm, I think this storm didn't have much damage for other people because other storms had already took the stuff out.
Yeah.
But quite a few people lost their little flimsy
Yeah.
greenhouses. And someone I was talking to there, and they're like, well, we got a year out of it. And I was like, oh, maybe that's sort of the attitude I kind of need to take then. But yeah, it's the thing in me that likes to make, do, and mend. And I just love the thing of on allotment plots that you just have this mishmash of stuff and you reuse stuff and you make the most of it and things like that, which is why I've been resistant to kind of upgrading my polytunnel or anything like that. I just kind of like to use what's there.
Yeah.
And because you never know how long you're going to be on an allotment.
No, not at all.
So.
I think for me, it's not as easy as just saying get rid of it and have nothing there, is it? Because you could say, well, now I have a space for a fruit cage or whatever. But
Yeah.
you actually have those fruit trees that need to be under cover, don't you?
So,
yeah.
I kept saying this to Becky. My fruit tree is my fruit trees. And she's like, move them. She moves everything. She loves moving plants around her garden. That's why if anybody's looking on the chat, she's McMoves plants, Becky McMove plants. She Bex McMoves plants. That's her title. Because that's what she does all the time. She just loves it, loves moving plants around her garden. Whereas I plant something, I'm like, well, that's there for life now. It's never going anywhere else.
I think the problem for moving them is obviously they're now coming into blossom, aren't they? So it's not
the right
time to move them. If it happened a month ago, you could easily have moved them, trim the roots. It wouldn't have been a problem. But yeah.
But that's the other thing I was saying to Becky is that actually we're past the worst of the weather now. We weren't going to get probably like really hard frost now. So even if I take it out, those trees are going to be fine for the summer out in the elements, and I don't have to worry about that until the autumn.
True.
So I do have a period of time there. But yes, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't the video that I was planning to make either. But hey ho, these things happen.
And for the record,
try and think about it as an opportunity for something new.
Well, yeah, and for the record, I don't think that you were over dramatic. I thought you were very calm, actually, considering what you'd experienced. So yeah, I would not have been that calm. Not have been that calm.
I asked you about the thumbnail and what to use, and you were like, depends. How upset are you in the video? I said, I kept it together.
You did.
But yeah, I was really disappointed.
I was like, rock bottom.
Yeah. I said it was more like crestfallen, which doesn't quite have the same pull for a thumbnail.
It doesn't.
But I think there were two things that really disappointed me. We'll get off this soon. But it was that I just put all that extra glass in.
Yeah.
Now, when I really thought about it, actually, the glass in the roof was already in. And that's the majority of what I lost. So I think the new glass that I put in is probably still out there. Yeah. So that wasn't as big a thing as I thought. But it was more that the allotment has just been fine. Yeah. It's just been doing its thing and I'm really happy with it. And it's a space that I can go to and just potter about and feel good. And now it's ruined. No, I'm being dramatic again. But now there's something that needs doing, whereas I'd got enough things on my to-do list for the back garden. So yes, I think that's what got me down a little bit about it. But the tomatoes cheered me up, and the daffodils coming out cheer me up, and tulips coming out, Claire. So
yes.
Yeah. Definitely spring is springing.
What about bargain of the week? Do you have one of those?
I do, because Becky did allow us to go to the garden centre. One of our local nurseries closes over the winter.
Right.
And you never know when it's going to reopen. And then suddenly a Facebook post will come up and we're open again. And so we headed over there to see what they had. And it's been under development. So there wasn't an awful lot. But on the bargain shelf, the first place I go to, I found this. Also in keeping, because it's a wildlife, nature's haven thing. But it's actually a green manure mix. And it's got borage, phacelia and red clover. And I looked on Amazon and it's £11. And in B&Q, it's like £15.50. How much do you think I got that for, Claire?
Oh, it's going to be really cheap. So, because it's kind of out of season for green manure, isn't it? Although that can be planted
this
whenever.
Is the one to be, plant now.
Something ridiculous. £2.50. Is that too ridiculous?
£1.
Wow.
So obviously I bought two. So I can now do 12 meters squared of cover crops. But yes, you can sow this March to May, and then again in September to October.
Brilliant.
And I used a lot of my green manure mix this year, which is coming up fabulously as another thing we'll talk about probably today. So it's nice to get some. I'm hoping that the seed is good. I don't think these have a best before date kind of thing on you would get on a seed packet. But I had Phacelia seed for an awfully long time and that's come up fine. So I think it'll be great. But yeah, pretty happy with that little bargain.
Brilliant.
How about you? Any bargains?
Well, not really, no. I appear to have bought things but that'll be more my Daft Thing, really. But I have had a rose. So, we coveted, or I coveted the Queen of Sweden rose, and you
It's a
refused
beautiful
to let me buy
rose.
it. And I mean, you refused to let me buy it, really, because you reminded me that I should be buying it as a
No,
bare root and not,
that's
it
right.
was
Yeah.
potted, wasn't it? So it was potted price when we saw them. And I left hints for Duncan. So every time, because he has hay fever tablet every morning, so he opened the cupboard and there was the David Austin book with arrows pointed to Queen of Sweden right by his tablets. When he opened his laptop, there was the David Austin book with the more arrows to the Queen of Sweden. And so, yes, I had the Queen of Sweden rose for Mother's Day, bare root. So, yeah, she arrived, and he did remember the discount code as well, because I did leave the card there. So he got the 15% off.
Very good.
So, yeah, I'm
But
very
he paid
thrilled.
for express delivery, didn't he? Because you said you'd got the notice that it was arriving. I was like, you only put all the hints the day before.
I know. He said because he got 15% off, he thought he'd pay for the expedited delivery. And I said it really didn't matter. But, so it wasn't quite the bargain, I guess. But no, he wanted me to have it for Mother's Day. So, yeah, it was a
And
nice
where is
surprise.
this rose going?
Well, she is going in the wash house garden.
Okay.
I think in my head there's going to be 3 sections of wash house garden, and I think all the David Austin roses will probably go together in one section. I mean, obviously not right on top of each other, but there'll be a David Austin rose garden in there. So yeah, she's going there. So I'm very excited. She's beautiful. She's a beautiful rose, and I especially love how her blooms stay right on top of the stem. So you know, a lot of the time they hang, don't they? But no, she's beautiful. I can't wait to see her in bloom. I can't.
Oh, lovely.
So go on then. Shall I tell you about my Daft Thing?
Go on, because I don't. No, I do have a Daft Thing.
Of course you have a Daft Thing. So the Daft Thing for me this week are the amount of emails I've been receiving with dispatch notices for things that I'd forgotten that I'd bought. So I've had some bare root GMs after only saying last week, no, I haven't ordered any GMs. I've got Mai Tai and something else.
More. I knew you had.
Yeah. Watching Sarah from Bloom and Grey, because as soon as I saw it said Mai Tai, I was like, that's something I definitely ordered that when I was watching Sarah from Bloom and Grey, because I remember her saying that's the one she likes. And then there was something else. There were some more bare roots for something else. I can't remember what they were now. And then all of my dahlias arrived. And why did I buy 12 of the same variety? I know you can take cuttings. 12 Wizard of Oz dahlias.
I can't believe you bought 12.
What planet was I on? But yeah, I've had a lot of dispatch notices, and then I've had another one for Farmer Gracie that's come today. Haven't opened the box. I have no idea what's in that one. It's not the GMs. It's something else. Oh, Astrantia. Astrantia. That was what was in the email.
No, of course, yeah.
I sent you that. Yeah, but I'd forgotten that I'd ordered those as well. So yeah, it's yeah. Not bargains. Bargains this week because I didn't pay for them this week, but I'd totally forgotten. I mean, they couldn't have not sent me those things and I would never have known. I wouldn't have missed them. So, yeah, that's a Daft Thing. Impulse purchases.
If people do want a little Farmer Gracie bargain, 40% off dahlias at the moment and 10% extra with my code. So thank you to Nicola for alerting us in the community page about that as well. Hopefully that deal will still be on Wednesday, and anyone who wants to grab a late bargain for their dahlias can. But that leads to my Daft Thing, which is I was not going to have any dahlias to bag up this year.
No.
Because I left them all in the ground. Well, 16 bags later, Claire. And I tried to blame Liam, but then I remembered that, like you, I asked for these things. So I really only have myself to blame. But I had just a couple where you could prize them apart, and there was actually 2 in the bag rather than just the one. Always nice. And but yeah, so I've made up 16 bags, but at least 2 of those are coming to you, Claire.
I'm definitely going to have a Wizard of Oz for you, at least one
lovely.
Wizard of Oz.
Because I'm sure I don't have that. Yeah.
She's a beautiful pale pink, but I've actually made 36 bags, Kerry. And I don't know how many dahlia tubers there are, because some of them were really small tubers, so I put 2 or 3 in a bag, because my freezer bags are massive. So there's a lot more than 36. So you have a lot, yes.
Did you do the bag method last year?
I did. I normally do the bag method. So the majority of them are bagged, but all of the Wizard of Oz I've put in the big tub tray thing that I
I
had.
thought you were going to do a
thing.
tray thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I put all of those in there just to see how they do by comparison, because I probably will take cuttings from them. I mean, I don't know why when I've got 12 of them, but, I can give them away to people. But then I found myself last night wanting to have Joey Winnie. I'd seen that somewhere and I thought, I like the look of that. Couldn't find it. It was out of stock. So I was like, stop looking. You have enough. You have enough.
Yes, I think there just has to sometimes be a point where you're like, no more.
No more.
But I'm not going to order anymore, but I know if I'm in a garden centre and I see a bargain, I know I won't be able to resist.
Well, I found myself looking for a rose or a dahlia called Harriet today, obviously, after the new granddaughter, to mark her arrival. And I did find a Harriet dahlia. Unfortunately, she was yellow. So that could not be done. No, that was a no.
I wanted to get Becky one for her birthday. It's called Rebecca's World. It's quite a deep red one, but she wasn't keen on it. So she said no, and she chose I think it was Mexican Star as the one she chose. Yeah. But, show and tell, Claire. Have you got...
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm doing this to poke fun at you.
Yeah, no, I know.
So I wanted to show how well my cup and saucer vine was doing. And I'd already earmarked this for my show and tell before just literally watching your video before we've come down here to record. And I was like, can I take that down? I feel like I'm sticking one to you somehow.
Rubbing my nose in it.
But yeah, I have 4 of them. This is one that's just slightly more on from the others. Some are getting their true leaves. But isn't she beautiful, Kerry? You didn't tell me how pretty the vine was. The purple stems on her. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
she's lovely.
When you said about the Dumbo ears, I was a bit like, I don't really remember it coming up like that. But now I see the true leaves on it. I'm like, oh yes, that's what it was like.
She's beautiful. So that's my show and tell. And I also have another one, which is on a theme that you were doing for the last 2-3 weeks. I found something else that I'd ordered a long time ago. Duncan was going through the post tray and found a packet of seeds. These seeds. And I was like, Zinnias. There's nothing in this one. Nothing. I've held it up to the light. There is nothing in it. Nothing. No pot, no seeds, no little bag in it, no seeds, nothing. So there, as I said to you, you get extra packets. There's none in that one. But I don't know when I ordered them. So even though I can show Thompson & Morgan an unsealed packet with the light shining through it to show that there's nothing in it, I don't know how long ago I ordered it. So it's probably a bit late to be doing that. So you
think it's one you ordered rather than bought at the garden centre? Perhaps you can search it in your emails. And see if
possibly.
You can find the variety.
I mean, it says there should be 60 seeds in there, which was quite a lot of seeds for a Zinnia packet. But I mean, I've bought loads since then. This would have been bought well before I decided to do a cutting garden. And now I've gone for the Cinderella lilacs, the Cinderella peaches, more subtle colours than this in general. So, I mean, yes, I would have planted it. Yes, I would have liked it, but I didn't know I had it. So I'm not going to cry too much over it. But I might drop them an email and say, there's nothing in it.
No. Well, my show and tell. Well, I guess I just want to shout out the Amaryllis one more time.
Beautiful.
Because this is probably it. These are the last 4 on the Mont Blanc, and then I just got that one the other day. This one was one of the first to flower. It was one of the cheapo ones, and another one has come out. It's on a really short stem though. But yes, they're gorgeous, but I think it's about done. But I have had so many blooms off of those over the winter. I could not be happier with them. But moving on to our little sow along update, I said in my video, I wanted to ask you about the Celeriac and when to prick them out, because they are just about getting their true leaves.
Well, Kerry, interestingly that you asked, because I've brought mine down and I sowed mine in the top of this pot. And this is how big mine are, and they are ready for pricking out.
Looks like parsley.
I know. In fact, they're over ready for pricking out. So somewhere between yours and mine, as soon as you've got the original leaves. But I'm only going to save about 6 to 8 of these. I clearly got a bit OTT with them. Strange that. But yeah, they are too late.
They look very healthy.
They are very healthy, but they are too far on.
Okay, I will wait a little bit more then. It needs water. That's what I've noticed. Just picking that up and picking up those tomatoes, like, yeah, all of this needs watering. So I shall do that in the morning.
And also, another thing that I wanted to say about these is when you pot them on and when you plant them out, I think I might know what I did that made them work okay last year. You know, we have a tendency to plant things a bit deep, don't we?
Yes.
You leave these above the surface of the soil.
Okay.
So you need the crown
Ah.
of them to be above the surface. Don't bury it deep because the root and the bulb part of the celeriac grows above ground. So if you tighten it into soil, it's not going to have the room to expand.
Okay.
So, yeah. So don't
Oh,
bury
good
them
tip.
deep when you plant them on.
Yes, we'll remind people that when we get to that point as well then. Lovely. Any other updates for your sow-alongs?
My pre-star cabbages are outside in the greenhouse. I've done that only today.
They're enormous, but
They are doing very well. I have covered them over at night just for a few nights, just so that they're not too shocked. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, hardening off does not mean still leaving them in the greenhouse overnight, generally speaking, but they have got a cover over them and it's not forecast to get too cold anyway. So, yeah,
no,
they're
it's
outside. So,
warmed up a bit now.
yeah, I've got a bit of space in the house. Oh, and my loofahs
I
are getting true leaves on them now.
Yes, mine too, which is really lovely. But everything else is just ticking along. Cape gooseberries are fine. Yeah, it's just the cup and saucer haven't come up. So,
That's so
I mean, I'll just
disappointing.
leaving them here. They'll do what they do. If I don't get any, well, oh well. Hang on a minute. This isn't my show and tell, and this isn't the sew along, but I did just want to show you these, Claire.
Okay.
Look at my aubergines.
Wow.
I don't know that I've ever grown aubergines quite as good as that.
They look amazing.
I need to be really careful with these now and not stress them out, which means probably, yeah, those also need a water. But yeah, being that my chilies and peppers have been a little bit lackluster, and these were sown at the same time, yeah, I'm super pleased with those.
Well, I've been doing an experiment
It's nice when things go well.
It is. And I've been doing a little bit of an experiment for you this year because we'd wondered whether last year it was because I later learned that the compost I was using, it said nothing on the bag, but it had peat in it, didn't it? It took a lot of digging to find that the compost actually had peat. Well, I'm using their all-purpose peat-free compost this year. It's still evergreen as a company, but it's definitely their peat-free compost this year. So I thought that maybe I would see how that fared in comparison because we've always wondered whether that's why I've had seedlings that have fared a little bit better at this early stage. But so far, they seem to be doing okay.
I'm wondering if it's more about your lighting, actually. Because when I was walking the dog and I was coming back round, I was looking at all my seedlings in the window, my display in the front window. And I was just thinking, I've got the little cheap grow lights over the top as well. I just don't think they get enough light in this window. I'm beginning to think that might be the issue.
How long do you have them on for? How long are the lights on?
Generally when I get up to when I go to bed. Except when I'm at Liam's and then I have them on the 12-hour timer.
See, mine are getting 16 hours a day. So that's the other difference, that they are on
Sometimes
for a bit longer.
I go bed really early.
Yeah.
Still light out and I go bed.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It's fine. But I don't know. I mean, I do think that this year, you look at things like this, that they're only small, my pepper seedlings, but actually I've moved the lights a lot higher because the peppers have gone purple on the leaves. So they're getting too much light. So I've taken the lights higher up for them. But the dwarf tomatoes that I've been growing, they've got flowers on them already. So yeah, I'm liking the new lights.
I think they look fabulous. I think the whole racking system looks really great. The only thing with my house is that my windows are quite high. So I'd want all the shelves high up, and I'm not quite sure how it would work like that. But I definitely at some point need to rethink my system for growing seedlings in the house because it's not ideal. I'm perched at the edge of the table here right now with all the seedlings getting all the room. But anyway, I think that's everything then, Claire, and we're ready for our main event for tonight, which is thinking about gardening with wildlife and the importance of thinking about biodiversity, thinking about our gardens as an ecosystem. And that I think valuing gardens as this space for wildlife. There was a stat on Autumn Watch, which said that gardens make up 4.6% of our landmass. And so that equals about 520 thousand hectares, sorry, which to me is just a number I can't visualize. But helpfully it says that's about a quarter of Wales.
Yes.
So our gardens in the UK are like a quarter of Wales. So it is a really important habitat. And especially for thinking about the way in which wildlife roams and moves between our spaces. This is important, of course, because we know that wildlife is decreasing. In the UK, we've lost, I think it's 73% of our wildlife in the last 50 years. And this has been at the top of my mind. I watched a documentary recently called Wilding. It's on Amazon Prime. It's based on a book by Isabella Tree, and I have the book, but I haven't read it. I now watched the film. It is a beautiful film. I do recommend it, although I had lots of questions at the end. But they were rewilding their farmland, so they'd had intensively farmed land in West Sussex, and over the last it's been a long time that they have been gradually rewilding this space. And at the very end of the video, they talked about how their ultimate dream was like that this space would expand and become this corridor all the way to the sea.
Wow.
Now they have introduced beavers. It took them 7 years or something to get a license to have beavers on the land. Storks. I didn't even know storks were native to this country, but they had storks. And now most of us, that is beyond our means, although I was thinking, Claire, that perhaps time to introduce some storks on your land. But the important thing is we can all do our bit, and that all our pieces of garden and allotments join together and create these bigger spaces that wildlife can then move through, all these kind of interconnected gardens. So both you and I have been looking into this week, and obviously there's things we already do for wildlife, but there's also things that we've been looking up and we might want to try this year and other people might be interested in. So I know that some of this led you to making some more purchases, Claire.
It did.
Most things do that we chat about, don't they? But do you want to kind of kick us off then? What have you been thinking about?
I've been looking forward to this topic because we were inspired, both of us really, by this, because when we met up recently at the garden centre, they had a really nice thing for bees and wildlife, didn't they? And it was made out of pallets. It was an enormous bug hotel. And I was really taken by it. And I've shown it to Duncan, and it is on our plans to put something like that on the plot. So a really big bug hotel.
Where would you put that?
I'm not sure really, either in the corner of the garden, the actual garden itself somewhere, or maybe down the bottom end of the plot closer to my sister's side, because she's going to have wildlife area down there. But I have kind of a natural bug hotel anyway on the farm, because we have quite a big area, used to be the hen run, where any chopped down tree branches, logs, leaves, any piles of like hedge clippings and things, they just get dumped there to rot down. We call it the brash pile. And I know that is basically a ginormous bug hotel anyway. So we do have it, but to me, it's just a messy area. I feel like I want to create something that I can look at and go, oh, look what I've created. It's pretty and it's for the bugs. So yeah. What about you? What's first on your list? What comes to mind for you?
Well, but I had bug hotels on the list, and obviously I made that little hanging one to put on the pear tree on the plot, although there's another thing, a storm came straight through and destroyed. But I have left it because it all fell out and I fell on the floor. So I put it at the base of the tree, put all the little things back in, and it sat there, and obviously that sat on wood chip anyway. So, it doesn't need to be something fancy, does it? It can be just a big pile of logs, and I've certainly got log piles or dead hedges around my garden, so that I've been adding to the dead hedge recently, and that goes all the way along under my hedging towards the back of the garden, and I love that. I love that it's practical for me, because it's hard for me to get rid of big branches like that when I'm coppicing the hazel or whatever it is that I'm pruning. So being able to kind of just shove it in their area. And I know it's not the most beautiful dead hedge. We have seen a beautiful dead hedge on our community page. We'll put it on the screen. I know it's not quite of that standard, but it's doing the job. And I think, like with that big log pile that you're talking about, it's essentially it's allowing yourself to be a bit messy.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at allowing myself to be messy. I think you're slightly less so, Claire. But I kind of extended that idea of having the dead hedge at the back of the garden to just putting little piles of twigs and branches.
Yeah.
I've got some that I've got behind the pond, because that's a really good place then for frogs and kind of newts to hang out. And I did see a newt in my pond today, Claire. We'll talk about ponds in a bit as well. And then on the other side as well, I've put some branches and things underneath the ginkgo tree. And I think that's the other thing about having little areas everywhere, rather than just sticking something at the back of the garden and thinking, well, that's where the wildlife can be. That's not how wildlife works, is it? And it's the same thing with pollinators. It's not. I really remember at one of the Gardeners World days that we went to, Stephanie Hafferty was giving a talk. And she was talking about having flowers for pollinators, another thing I'm sure we'll talk more about. But her point was you can't just have a patch, don't just have one little border at the back of the garden or somewhere else. Make sure you've got lots of patches, or ideally mix it all in with everything, because that's what you want your pollinators to do, is be able to move all around your growing space. And again, that's this idea of corridors and letting the wildlife and the insects move between spaces. But yeah, I've got some bought hotels as well that I've got on the plot. And I made one under the bathtub as well. And I think sometimes people worry about these messy areas, particularly on allotments, where sometimes you can get in trouble if you've got messy areas. So signs are a really good way of indicating to people that this is purposeful, this is deliberate. And when we were having the judging for the best plot competition, I made sure I got like a sign that said log pile, critters welcome, something like that. And I'd stuffed all like branches and glowed artichoke heads and things like that underneath the bath and around it. And that's provided another habitat there. I would love to think that a hedgehog has made its home under the bathtub, but I've seen no evidence as yet. So, definitely leaf piles as well. Really good wood and leaf for attracting beetles. And beetles, I think, is something that we should be encouraging more and more in our gardens. I mean, beetles do predate slugs as well, which is an added little bonus. But that's part of it, is having all the elements of an ecosystem, isn't it? You can't just favour the good things.
Yeah. I mean, and I've had comments in the past about not having grass paths on my plot because of the biodiversity of the soil and the little bits of weeds that could grow in them and flower for pollinators. But woodchip is an amazing habitat for the beetles and spiders. And I know, yes, you will get slugs and worms and things in there, but obviously they in turn feed the birds as well. As much as it's a circle of life, isn't it? Having all of that woodchip on the plot, I don't feel limits the biodiversity of my plot. In some ways, I actually do believe that it enhances it. It is organic. It does rot down. It produces so much for the garden as well as for wildlife.
And you've been putting that woodchip as it's rotted down onto your beds now as a mulch as well. And this is obviously something that's really important for biodiversity in our garden as well as soil health. All of these creatures that are microscopic, we can't even see them, and being able to encourage those does so much for our gardens. I mean, we've talked about using green manures before, and we've talked about mulching before, and the importance of that and adding organic matter to our gardens, again, both for the health of our plants, but also for the health of the soil itself. I was thinking about the sunflowers that I've left on the plot. So I cut the majority of the sunflower down, but left the stem because that's hollow, and left the roots because those roots just sitting in the ground and rotting are attracting all sorts of life around them and improving the quality of the soil and how much can live in that soil. And I can see that that's happening on my plot. There wasn't all that many earthworms on my plot when it was a dug plot that I inherited, but I can see them all coming back. And I think we were talking last week, weren't we, about the amount of ladybirds that are around at the moment, which is great. And I think, probably because of the amount of aphids that were around last year. They fed well last year, the ladybirds, didn't they?
They did.
So I think they've probably increased their numbers because of that this year.
Definitely.
So no dig, using green manures, adding organic matter, and recycling all the sorts of things that you might think of as waste in the garden, but are actually either great for the compost and making better soil, or for creating these kinds of habitats that we've been talking about. Yeah.
I think second to a bug hotel, the thing that people most think about when attracting wildlife would be to have some form of pond in their garden or on their allotment. And, I've said all along that I don't need one. You can see
You've got a lake.
It's huge, isn't it, the pond? But actually, been coming around to the idea of having some form of barrel pond somewhere, so either sunk into the ground. And the main reason for that is we do have lots and lots of ponds about. I have seen frogs, I have seen toads, and I have seen newts. But all of our ponds, especially the one that you see in the background in my videos, they are well stocked with fish. So there's no point in putting a pond in and putting fish in it if you're trying to attract frogs or newts, because obviously they're going to eat the tadpoles or the frog spawn. So I do think I'd like to put something in that I know has no waterfowl or fish in it, so that I can have somewhere that frogs can actually breed in safely. And there's loads of things that you can do to attract frogs into your garden and the wildlife that comes along with ponds. So damselflies, dragonflies, we get loads of those on our ponds because we've got a lot of pollinating flowers around the main pond. Can't say the word, Kerry. Flag irises and marsh marigolds that flower. And the damselflies love those. Obviously, if you've got lily pads, we don't have lilies on our pond. But all things like that do help to attract the damselflies. And if you want somewhere for newts, and you're putting a pond in, you have to remember that they need somewhere just out of the water as well. So they don't spend all of the time in water. So, a terracotta pot or broken planter on its side with a bit of woodchip or gravel or something in that they can crawl inside and hide away from, tucked out of sight a bit. They would love that. The pond in itself has to be a complete ecosystem, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And you can make a wildlife pond, you can dig one. So Becky did that in her garden, and it's a beautiful wildlife pond. And she did it really well. Took a lot of work, but it's got a deeper end, it's got a shallow end that goes out. She's got all the bits and pieces like sticks and things in it, so things can land on them. And she's got the flowers and aquatic plants in there as well. Now, I already had a pond when I moved into this house, but it was a fish pond, so it's all deep edges. So I've had to put like a little plank of wood so things can crawl in and out. And obviously, if something falls in there, like a hedgehog, it needs to be able to get out. Or a dog. I think every single dog in this family has been in that pond. Willow, Becky's puppy, was in there just yesterday. Heard a splash. Luckily, she had a little harness on so I could pull her straight out. Duckweed all over. So she disturbed the wildlife that was in my pond yesterday. But that's why I saw the newt. So I had to have things that like around it so that things could do that, and then add rocks. So there are two little shallow shelves in it where I've got plants on and rocks. So again, things can come in and out, and they can land on it and things like that. But if you do want to attract wildlife into the garden that needs water, you don't have to dig a pond, and that might not be suitable for your space. But have you heard of something called a Hoverfly lagoon, Claire?
I have not. I can kind of guess what it might be, but I'd love you to explain it fully.
Lagoon sounds so lovely, doesn't it? But this is actually just really not very pleasant. So you just need a bucket, fill it with water, but then you also want to fill it with like sticks and twigs and soil, leaves, things that will rot. So it may get a little bit stinky. But then you put some twigs on the top. And that's what attracts hoverflies is this kind of stagnant, still water.
Yeah.
So even if you have got a pond, but you've got like a pump going in it and
You can't have
oxygenating
that,
it, it might be useful to have one of these as well for hoverflies. But I have some water around the garden and the plot as well, just in shallow dishes. So I had my breakfast breakfast bowls on the plot with some rocks in and water for bees to land on and drink. And I've got some tall ones, which I think they're just called rain catchers, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I've got some of those in the garden. They haven't got rocks in those over the winter, so that the birds can drink out of them. But when it gets a little bit warmer, I'll put some stones in there as well, so bees can land on. But yeah, just it doesn't have to be a massive thing. It's just these tiny little things that you can add to your garden that potentially would make a really big difference. So you hadn't heard of hoverfly lagoons, Claire. Had you heard of rot holes?
Oh no.
There is no nice way either. I was trying to think, how do I ask Claire about rot holes without saying something that's going to sound really bad? So I'm just going to tell you what they are.
Please do.
But basically, it's thinking about old wood that is rotted through, and you keep it so that beetles and creatures can live in the hole in the wood.
Right.
You've got some stumps as well in your, because you had all the trees took down. Have you left some of the stumps then? Because they would have rot holes.
And we do have some bark that's just, just like a hump of a bark. And we also have somewhere the tree stumps or the tree trunk actually was rotten. So we have these really irregular shaped rings. There's nothing in the middle of them, but you've got the outer ring of the tree and the bark. And I keep wondering if there's anything we can do to make those a bit of a feature, standing them up on the side. They're absolutely beautiful. They're in our coppice area at the top of the driveway. Okay. So again, they've been obviously a bug hotel in themselves anyway. Yeah, we have loads of stuff.
That's a nice idea to make a feature out of it as well, though. Yeah.
I love a stumpery because it was before we took all the trees down around the wash house. One of the things I wanted to do was to make that a shady garden, plant lots of ferns in there, and make it a stumpery. And then, of course, the trees came down and it's not a shady garden anymore. So what we were going to do to make it a stumpery and the ferns and things, they wouldn't like to live there now. But yeah, I would like to find somewhere to put these things, definitely.
Yeah. What other kinds of habitats then? Well, living hedges we haven't mentioned. You've got plenty of those, Claire. Yeah. Do you have birds nesting in your hedges?
We do
as well.
We do. It's things like the robins and the blackbirds mainly, because robins will go into a bird house, but it's very, very rare that they'll take up residence in a birdhouse. They prefer to be in the hedges. But obviously they're a great source of food and shelter, and obviously nesting for the birds as well. So they're very, very important to have those. And actually, when you start looking at these things, you realise that you unwittingly, unknowingly have lots of wildlife habitat within your garden, even when you haven't put any thought into it. Yeah, absolutely.
I have huge ivy at the back of my garden, and the berries on ivy are wonderful for the birds. And I don't feed the birds in my garden because I would prefer them to eat from the garden, and there is plenty of food for them, including all of that ivy. And there's birds there all the time. There's so many birds in my garden, which is why I've had to stop really growing edibles. Like, actually, in fairness to my birds, they don't eat the berries. And I grow a lot of berries in the home garden. They don't eat them, which is crazy.
It is.
But what they loved eating was lettuce, beetroot, chard. None of them stood a chance in my home garden. The sparrows would just strip them.
Sparrows? I was going to say, is that just pigeons? No, sparrows as well.
I do have pigeons, but for the majority is small birds. And but yeah, I've been working in the home garden a little bit this weekend, and I've seen the goldfinches. They were on the rowan tree.
Oh, I've seen a lot of them about. Yeah.
Yeah, and on my ginkgo actually, they were on the ginkgo tree, but I think that was more because the honeysuckle goes up
Yeah.
the ginkgo, so I think they were collecting material from that. And the robin, of course, has been following me about all over the garden, like, "What are you doing? What are you unearthing?"
As soon as you move soil, the robins are
Yeah,
there, aren't they? You
yeah.
know, we've had that when we've
You
been
can
putting in
sniff
those
it out.
flower beds. Definitely. Definitely.
But
Well,
I got comments sometimes about the birds on my videos because you can hear the birds
yeah.
when I'm in the home garden. And I remember there was a little controversy thing around Gardener's World that people thought they were using too loud a bird track over Monty Don. And he had to come back and say, nope, that's just the birds in the garden.
Yeah.
That's for real, you know.
I've been asked that
You
before
can't
as
ask them
well.
to shush.
I've been asked that, especially when you get to, I can't know what time of year it is. It's definitely summery time, and the buzzards, I'm sorry, but they haven't had their first kill. So the young buzzards that are leaving the nests, and they make it sounds like you're in a Western movie, the noise they make when they're circling, because they're screaming for the parents to feed them while they're flying around.
Yeah.
And the parents are at this point of like, "Bleh, you're dead to us now, sort yourself out." And the noise they make, it's deafening and it's continual until they've learned they get hungry enough that they will make their first kill and they're self-sufficient and the noise stops. But you can hear that on my videos sometimes. And people think that's engineered sound as well for the same reason, because it's such a
It's a
noise,
weird
it's such a
noise,
weird
yeah.
noise. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it's not. And obviously sometimes you can hear seagulls, because even though we're landlocked in Staffordshire, the seagulls will come, especially when farmers are muck spreading the fields. But it sounds wrong. It doesn't. It's such a juxtaposition to hear
Yes, you wouldn't expect
seagulls
to hear them.
in farmland. Yeah. So yeah, definitely it is funny. But one of the things I was going to touch on, because you just mentioned honeysuckle, I thought I'd mention the thing that I've actually bought. So whilst I was doing some of this research, I realised moths like night-scented flowers, because obviously they come out at night. So the packet of seeds that I bought were actually night-scented stocks. So not the normal stocks that we grow, but the night-scented stocks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be planting or sowing a lot of those around for the moths, because they are equally important. Then you read that circle of life thing again, and it says, because then when there's plenty of moths about, there's plenty of food for the bats. And I'm like,
I was going to say, because you have bats, don't you?
We have bats, yeah. So I don't put up bat boxes, because obviously that is a thing that you can do for birds or bats, obviously. But we don't put bat boxes in, because we have plenty of ship-on buildings and they are full of bats. You know, we've always got bats flying around at night.
I love it when I see the bats.
I love them.
Yeah.
I love them.
I occasionally, we see them on the park when we walk the dogs at twilight, but I've seen them in the garden before as well. I've tried to capture them on film. And it was funny, actually, because I remember doing a video where I was trying to film the bats. Of course, it's very hard to do that in the dark anyway, and they whiz by. But it was what I was filming just before I went on holiday to Turkey, before realising that the bats in Turkey are like this.
Huge. Yeah, the fruit bats they have, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic. But bats are amazing. But the other thing you can do for moths, of course, is to think about light pollution in your garden. And I think we're all a little bit guilty of liking some lights at night in the garden. But it is best if you don't leave those on all night, because that will confuse and deter, it will attract moths that, it's not a flower. It's not going to do anything for them.
No.
So yes, that is usually good advice, is to turn your lights off when you go to bed.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's wrap up on habitats and things then. Have you got a hedgehog house? I want to make one.
I don't. I've only ever seen hedgehogs here once. And to be honest, I don't tend to encourage them. I mean, as much as I'd love to see hedgehogs here, and we got very excited when we saw that one that time, we have a huge badger population here. And I'm sorry, but they like to eat hedgehogs.
You don't want to encourage them to then be predated.
Yeah, definitely, because the badgers will eat hedgehogs. And I think that's why, to be honest, I think that's why we don't see many hedgehogs, because I do think that they fall victim to the badgers. And I mean, I've never got the badgers on camera actually, but we have a huge population, but not
Mm.
quite so much as close to the house anymore. They've moved sort of further out onto the farm, so I'd have to go and put some trail cams out on
There
the
you go.
farm for those.
There's a mission for you, Claire. We want to see a badger.
Don't see them as much since coming close to the house, since we don't have hens, because they would come around the hen sheds.
Yeah.
So I don't see them as much. But I mean, obviously, I know that we have them. Their sets are very active and huge. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was slowworms. Do you get slowworms in your garden?
I can't say that I've ever seen any.
Do you know why we want to encourage slowworms in the garden?
Tell me, Claire.
Slowworms eat more slugs than any other garden visitor in the garden.
I
they love
definitely
eating
like some
slugs
slowworms
and snails.
They should be here. There's enough slugs for them.
Well, they do like compost bins, but what slugs and snails? What slugs and snails? Not slugs and snails. We know what slugs and snails like. Brassicas, any tender plant.
Dahlias.
Yeah. What slowworms like is to bask in the heat. So if you put down a piece of tin sheeting or roofing felt, if you've got some old felt, sometimes people will just put down a little square of carpet. I know we're against carpet in gardens, but I guess even a sheet of plastic, they will bask under the heat of it, that sweaty heat that they put in the ground underneath them. And you can often lift up a sheet of corrugate and find a slowworm underneath it. So we know that we have them on the farm. Will I be able to find one for us now before I edit this video? Possibly not.
Come on, Claire.
It's a bit cold
There's
yet
another mission for you.
It's too cold. It's too cold, I think,
true.
to see them yet.
Yeah.
But, that is something else to encourage, definitely, because they do like eating slugs and snails.
You can make habitats to encourage snakes as well. It's called a hibernaculum.
That's a good Scrabble word.
It is, isn't it? I don't think you'd have enough tiles for that. You need to make a hole in the ground for this one. So you dig a little bit of hole, you put logs, rocks, you could put bits of broken crockery and things like that. You've got some broken terracotta pots or whatever, some branches. And then you want a pipe to go into the bottom of the hole to the top.
Right.
And then you fill it in with soil. Okay, don't pack it down. You want it to be loose. And then you can plant on top and everything. But creatures will go down the pipe and live in the little habitat that you've created underground. And then, of course, they can get out. So make sure your pipe doesn't get blocked. But I thought that was a nice idea. Another one that's... if you're worried about having a messy garden and you want it to look neat, well, that's fine. All you're going to have is a little pipe poking out of the ground. Yeah.
I love the sound of that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one. Okay, shall we move on to thinking about plants a bit more then, Claire?
Go for it.
Okay. So obviously pollinators are super important to us as gardeners. Apparently 85% of total nectar produced in a city is in the gardens of that city. Now, 91% of those plants tend to be non-native. And that sometimes means the pollen and the nectar can't be accessed by insects. Now, the research that I was looking at said, well, any plant is better than no plant.
Yeah.
But we should be looking to steer more towards native plants. And of course, Claire, you're starting your flower garden, but you're also in the wildflower area where you're doing that again, aren't you, that you had last year? Yeah. What's your kind of feelings about native, non-native plants? And do you think about buying plants that are specifically for pollinators?
I do. When I go to the garden centre to buy plants, obviously I'm doing it slightly differently because I'm also going to the garden centres and buying seed packets, like this Zinnia packet that has nothing in it. I always look for this logo in the top,
the little bee,
the pollinating logo. And I do the same when I'm buying plants to plant out as well. And I tend to find that everything that says bees on it seems to be a purpley or a blue colour. It must be their favourite colour somehow. It's mine as well, so I suppose I'm drawn to them. But I don't guess I think necessarily about the origin, because zinnias come from Mexico, I believe, don't they, originally? So I don't think about the origin of the plant as such, but yeah, I do look for that logo. That logo is very important when I am planting out. And I think the longer you garden and you start planting things in the garden, the more you actually notice yourself what plants within your garden are attracting the bees the most. So for me, it's always the cosmos. more so than the zinnias. I don't find that I get that many bees on the dahlias compared to the cosmos and the
No.
calendula. They love the antirrhinums. So, I have
Oh, yes.
well
And
over 200.
foxgloves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got
those
loads of
kinds of plants.
foxgloves.
Native or non-native, the important thing is to have variety. Like you were
Yes.
saying, something that will be attractive to moths at night. But there are, different insects need access to the pollen nectar in different ways. So having different shaped flowers. Talking about the dahlias there. Now we're suckers for the beautiful, ornate, decorative dahlias, aren't we, Claire? But actually, your kind of open-faced dahlias
Yeah.
where there's easy access to the pollen in the centre of the plant are really good to have as well. And we've got a fair share of those. I think it's a balance sometimes. Obviously, you want your
Absolutely.
garden to work for you and you know what you find beautiful, but adding in some of these things that are also good for wildlife and also beautiful. So having lots of variety and having things that will flower across the year. So as one
Yeah.
thing ends, another thing comes. I'm not very good with that kind of planning because that takes some forethought. I will try and get better at it. And then also having things like canopies. So having some trees or large shrubs and things that create habitats beneath them. There's places for insects to shelter beneath them. We've also talked about having rot holes and things and stuff like that. That all creates good habitat. In fact, it was saying that more so than having a native or non-native kind of versus thing, it was more important to have a canopy. That the most insects were then found if you had a canopy. And then companion planting as well. We're advocates of mixing our flowers in with the vegetables anyway and having that kind of polyculture. So doing more of that will help as well.
For the pollinating insects, obviously your blossom trees and the green manure, some of my mustards are starting to flower now. So they are one of your earliest flowers alongside the daffodils and the early varieties of tulips, because like the Red Riding Hood that we've both got are early varieties. Yeah, they're flowering now. These are important early pollinators, the things that are waking up very early, because as we've mentioned, I think last week, didn't we say, or the week before, we're seeing a lot of bees in the garden.
Yes. Yeah.
We've gone from not seeing anything to lots of bees about. And it was put in a comment on my video, actually, when I'd shown the bee in the pollen in the polytunnel, that actually they're all queen bees at the moment. They're all females, apparently, that we're seeing at this time of year. So, yeah, the ladies, they need their food.
Needs some
They need their
sucker.
food.
Well, talking about varieties then and the kinds of plants, native plants that you can have in your garden. So some of the best plants or flowers for beneficial insects include poached eggplant, which is another fairly early flower. I've had trouble getting poached eggplant to establish in my garden. I'm going to try again because I do like it. Calendula, pot marigolds. California poppies. I've also had trouble growing those. I've never been a good poppy grower. Phacelia. So there, like the mustards, is green manure. I've got loads of phacelia coming up on the plots. Some of it I will trim down to add as a mulch to the soil. Some I will leave to flower. Cornflowers, Claire. Now you had a whole load. You had a swathe of cornflowers last year. Did you notice lots and lots of bees on those and things?
I did, and I'm hoping that they self-seed again for this year, but I have sown a few more, but they're not the only things I'm putting in that bed this year. But yeah, I'm hoping that they come back.
I'm going to direct sow some as well.
Yeah.
Foxgloves, I already mentioned. Forget-me-nots. Now, I know some people are a bit not so keen on forget-me-nots because they spread like wildfire. So they can become a little invasive and a bit weedy, but they pull out so easily. So once they've flowered, before they go to seed, you can just pop them out. And honesty, I noticed some honesty coming up in my garden this morning.
I've got some of that to sow, actually.
Yes. It's a biennial, isn't it?
Yeah.
That one. So yeah, I say this because I had loads one year and then there was none. I was like, where's this gone? And this year I should have my next lot.
Yeah.
In terms of shrubs, buddleia, I kind of picked out the ones that I know are in my garden. So I've got my buddleia, which I still haven't pruned. Pyracantha. Oh my goodness, do the bees love pyracantha. And then I mentioned the ivy as well. And then lastly, for trees, cotoneaster, which is another one, lots of berries. The hawthorn, lots of berries. The hazel. Squirrels always get the hazelnuts before I do. Holly as well, and silver birch was on the list. And then we mentioned companion planting. So you might put that calendula with your cabbages. So you would be attracting hoverflies and ladybirds that are going to eat the white cabbage butterfly eggs and little destructive caterpillars. You might have nasturtiums with your beans. I remember that I did that in 2024, underplanted all my beans with nasturtiums, really had this in mind, this lovely companion planting going on. And then the slugs ate all the beans. And I just had nasturtiums around the poles. And then crimson clover around fruit bushes, which was one I hadn't heard about before. I've got crimson clover in my new green manures. And yes, you can put that round to attract insects around the base of your flower bushes. And then if you cut it down, you can then put it down as a mulch and it'll add nitrogen to the soil around the fruit bushes. So, yeah. I did see a good thing about thinking about diverting rain. So a lot of us collect rainwater, obviously for planting, watering our plants. But there were ways of kind of diverting it to create little bog gardens as well. I thought it was a really nice idea. I mean, my old plot, the entire thing was a bog garden, but to deliberately do a space and create that habitat as well.
It's good, isn't it? When I was looking up some of the plants, common plants in the garden that would be good for pollinators as well, I was quite pleased to see that some of them are newly going into my garden this year or newly expanding in my garden this year. So Verbena bonariensis is another good one for the insects and the bees especially. Echinacea, I have.
You've got loads of that, Claire.
Quite a lot of echinacea. Obviously lavender, we've mentioned cosmos before. You've mentioned buddleia. Comfrey, if you let that go to flower, that is a really good one for the pollinators. Yeah. And flowering herbs and brassicas. Yes. So never feel sad if you've not harvested your herbs and they've gone to flower, because those flowers are extremely important for pollinating insects and attracting them in, definitely.
Okay, well, just to end, I wanted to give some credit, because a lot of the research that I was looking at was out of a talk that I went to at Gardeners Wildlife. It was for the Rooted in Nature Eco Talk Garden, and Chris Collins did a talk there, and that's when I learned about rot holes and the hoverfly lagoons and things like that. And that garden was based on a piece of research that was done. So I shall link that in the description below if people would like to look a little more into that. Okay, that was really interesting, Claire. Yeah, and I just feel better about gardening when I feel like I'm gardening in harmony with the other creatures that use that space.
What we really can't overlook is that in doing all of this, the wildlife are actually then helping us with our gardening, isn't it?
A reciprocal relationship, yeah. And that's why, I mean, we probably should have said right up top, the worst thing you can do for wildlife in your garden is to be using pesticides and herbicides and artificial fertilizers and things like that. So, that's all again about that soil health. And I think, it makes gardening, I think, a larger experience than just you growing your food or growing your flowers, and you feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourselves. And indeed we are, because as we've seen, we need to be protecting our wildlife. It is in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. And on that note, that's slightly down a note. Let's move to our community spotlight then for this week. And again, very active in the community space, Claire. So let's have our rundown for this week.
I think the most important thing to mention first, Kerry, when talking about the community spotlight, is that we've had a few comments from people that are struggling to access our community or don't actually understand what we're talking about when we mention the community. And if you're on the YouTube app, most reliably on a mobile device, unlike Kerry, who seems to be the only person that can access it from a notepad. If you
I
go
have
on
no
the
issue.
YouTube app, click underneath our name where it says View Channel, and that will open up another tab underneath that says Community. And if you click on the Community, you can scroll down through all of the posts. If you click Newest at the top, you will obviously then see them in chronological order of newest. Profound statement there, Claire. And that's where you're able to post. You can view what everyone else has done, interact with other people, but you can obviously make your own posts there. And then hopefully in future weeks, you'll be featured in this section. So it's been, as you said, very active this week, Kerry. A lot of things are happening with the sow along for people. Dawn's loofahs have germinated. Pete's Cornish garden, he's potted his on. Siggy's are looking really good now. She's got true leaves coming on her loofahs. And then Truda, last week we mentioned that she was sowing the wrong Canterbury bells and not cathedral bells. She's actually found cathedral bells, so yay. Truda has now got the proper seeds for the grow along. Charlotte Hill's got lift off on her sow along sowings as well. And Jeanette Shaw's is another one, like me, that's managed to get her cup and saucer vines to germinate. So it's lovely to see how you're all getting on with the sow along. And please do keep those photos coming through the season. But if we just head to general comments in the community spotlight, we have Sue, Bountiful Acre. Her Amaryllis, like yours, is absolutely gorgeous. And I love the story behind Sue's Amaryllis because she found this bulb in the shed when she moved into a house last year. So she got no idea what variety it was, but actually it's absolutely beautiful. And I also noticed today that all of her tomatoes have germinated. And Kerry, you think you've sown a lot. Have you seen that picture? How many tomatoes she has? She's going to have a lot of tomatoes this year. Julie Rose grows her chilies, peppers, etc. Are finally getting some natural light in the window. And it made me think that I remember having all of my seedlings on windowsills in the garden room sort of from April time onwards. It just felt warm enough and hot enough or bright enough to have them there. So we're not getting far away from more space for more things to be planted. Now, Carrie Woodburn has been really busy on her plot. It's all been weeded and mulched. New paths have been laid. That woodchip looks absolutely amazing. And Lynn, plot 35 and 36B. I know I said that wrong last week as well. She's also been doing similar to Carrie, weeding and prepping her beds. It looks amazing to see all of the fresh black compost and clean on top of the beds. It's beautiful seeing
so
that time of year. It is. Now, talking about sowing, we are not the only ones that keep sowing. Pammy, Garden of Whedon, has had an absolute amazing sowing marathon. There was just seed packets and pots everywhere. Crazy. And Pammy is actually growing all of the plants for her allotment shop this year. That is a massive undertaking on top of growing her own vegetables as well. So kudos to Pammy. I hope that goes well. I'm sure it's quite stressful for her at the moment. Jeanette's meteor peas are romping away. She was worried that, she was asking if it was too early to plant them out. And I did comment back to say, personally, I think it is a little bit too early. I did plant some out, I think, the middle of April last year, but they were heavily fleeced and they still struggled. They really don't like the cold winds, especially if they come with the April showers. Jane Kennedy, she's had an amazing She Grows Veg seed haul for Mother's Day from her son.
I think she might also have the beef and onion tree. Because she was asking me about that and if mine had germinated last year, which it did. It's a sad looking little plant right now. It's been overwintering in the house, but if it doesn't perk up this spring, I will be sowing again. I've got some seed left, but yeah, it's nice to do some more unusual things, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, son did good for Mother's Day there, absolutely. Charlotte Horworth, birdhouse gourd has popped up, and I still have not drilled into mine, Kerry. I know you were talking about it in your video.
Yeah, I was thinking when we next meet up, you need to bring the drill with you and we'll do mine in the car park.
You're doing it.
No,
I'm not drilling into yours. You're doing it. You're
making Duncan do yours.
Yeah, but in fairness, Duncan doesn't trust me with his power tools anyway. So for this,
he might not let you bring it to the garden.
Oh no, he would really. But in this instance, I'm going to use that mistrust to my advantage so that I can blame him if it all goes wrong. And I have said to him, if the first one breaks, at the end of the day, I need the seeds to start again or to try again anyway.
I'm desperate to get the seeds out of mine now.
But I mean, I didn't sow them until the middle of April last year. And if you look on the actual original seed packets, it does say to sow them from April. I sowed them directly outside in the greenhouse when I sowed the cucumbers and the squashes, the summer squashes and winter squashes. So it's not actually that important to do that. Well, they don't need to be done yet. So there's no rush. I didn't sow them any earlier.
Yeah.
And then we've got Jules Gardens, who's blaming us for all of her spring bulbs. We had a lot of spring bulbs posted last week, didn't we? And I just thought it was quite funny to say, we've enabled her. She's bought a lot of bulbs. It's all our fault. I think she was another one that I commented, you're very welcome. And I wanted to finish off the community spotlight this week by mentioning Joe's patch. Now, if my granddaughter hadn't been born yesterday and hadn't been so teeny tiny, and I hadn't been having to run around buying preemie baby clothes for her today, I was going to go to a Blue Diamond Garden Centre because he'd got the variegated leaf monstera, hadn't he?
I have to say I'm tempted too.
Yeah, I really, really want to go and get one of those. And I was hoping to go and buy one, and it was going to be my show and tell. So let's have that as a teaser for next week. I'm hoping that by next week I will have sourced one of these monsteras, because I then realised I'm actually meeting Jane from Jane's Growing Garden on Thursday at Trentham Gardens. So I should have the opportunity to go and buy one. So thank you for giving us all the tip for that one, Joe, that they are reduced to exceedingly good price. So it can be my show and tell, my bargain of the week, and it can also be what's hot next week. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I've promised myself that I wouldn't buy any more houseplants. I'm trying to reduce my houseplants. When one starts to struggle, I'm like, well, you've had your chance, you're out. So I'm being quite ruthless with them. But a variegated monstera.
Well, what about we could do a plant swap here then, couldn't we, Kerry?
Stop trying to give me your houseplants.
No, I want a mother-in-law's tongue.
Oh, yeah, sure, you can have one of those.
Yes, I really love that in your video.
I thought I'd asked you if you wanted one of those before.
I don't think I knew what one was, to be honest, but I think I'll take it up to my mother-in-law and tell her that this is a mother-in-law's tongue.
Yes. Well, as always, Claire, lovely to have spent the evening with you and everybody in our community. Thank you for being here with us. We have one more week before we take our mid-season break, so we'll be gone over the 2 weeks of Easter. I say 2 weeks of Easter because I'm 2 weeks break from university. I guess people with kids would be like, the 2 weeks of Easter. And then we'll be back for the second half of our season 2. So, cheers, Claire.
Cheers, Kerry. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend the evening with you again, and looking forward to next week. Look after yourselves, everybody. And before we go, one final comment. We are both in green clothing.
There is so much green on this screen.
There is. We are dressed for the wildlife this week as well, aren't we?
We are dressed for our logo, Claire.
We absolutely are, Kerry. We are. So look after yourselves, everybody. I hope you're enjoying a cuppa with us right now, and we'll see you next week. Bye.